This is Jonathan Singer. You're listening to original audio content from MyDD.com, direct democracy for people-powered politics. In February 2007, I had the opportunity to speak with then-Senator, now President-elect Barack Obama. Now, the interview.
You talked about today about battling against cynicism within the electorate, trying to get people more involved. We were talking yesterday briefly about one process reform that we have in Oregon, vote by mail. I was wondering if you think that there can be process reforms to get people more involved, or there needs to be a more systematic change as well.
Well, I think all of the above. I cut my teeth on, organizing first in the community, and then when I came back from law school, organized a voter registration project called Project Vote that registered about 150,000 new voters. But it was painstaking. The barriers that we still have in place for people getting involved just in exercising the franchise is still significant. We need to tear those down. This week, Schumer and I introduced a bill dealing with deceptive practices. Some of the nonsense that we saw in 2000 with, people calling up and saying, or actually in this election, calling up and saying that their polling place has been moved, or that if you have a parking ticket you can't vote, spreading disinformation. We need to have a Justice Department that actually is prosecuting that stuff, and it's not the Justice Department. What our bill does is allows for a private right of action, so the voter himself can bring that to court and challenge it before it's too late for them to vote. I personally think that we should seriously consider, on a state-by-state basis, moving away from partisan gerrymandering, because I think that it discourages the kind of robust debate that we need to have. If people feel like this is a 90% Democratic district or a 90% Republican district, then at a certain point, folks just start opting out of the process. So those are all procedural forms that could make a difference. Now, ultimately, elected officials and candidates themselves have to break down some of these barriers. And I think the Internet's been an invaluable tool to help connect candidates to potential supporters. But I think that there is still a hesitancy on the part of a lot of campaigns because they want to control the process themselves. I'm leaving George Mason University, where a group called Students for Barack Obama just organized a 3,000-person rally. We had nothing to do with it. We couldn't have, there's no way we could have, given the time constraints we're under, organized something that good. But if candidates, I think, are willing to loosen the reins a little bit, then that encourages people, especially young people, who have got other opportunities for public service, to get involved. And then the final aspect of it is message. I don't care how open your process is, if your politics are timid, people aren't going to be excited, they're not going to get involved.
So one of the things you spoke about today was getting universal health care and quickly. Knowing what learning what you have over the past 2+ years in the Senate, as well as your time in the legislature down in Springfield, what do you think you'll need to do as president to get that done, so that people don't just think it's a candidate saying I'm going to do it?
No. Look, I think a new president has to. Let's put it this way. I think first the candidate would have to describe this commitment with some specificity, which isn't to say that you've got the whole plan worked out perfectly ahead of time, or that there's not going to be any compromise or modifications. But you have to run on the notion that by the end of your first term you're going to have health for all. then would give you, should you win, a mandate. And you have to use that mandate quickly in the first 100 days or before the corrosive process of Washington starts setting in. And there are going to have to be compromises. There is a powerful.
Hello?
Jonathan?
Senator? Yeah.
Uh-oh. Sounds like we might have lost him.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'll call you right back.
Yep.
I'll talk, Jonathan. It's probably a sign that I was talking too much.
No worries whatsoever. Another source, I think, of cynicism, not just within young people, but among the 60 to 70% of people in polls and the 55% of people who voted Democratic in 2006, is that the president is moving in the exact opposite direction on the issue of Iraq, and not just on Iraq, but on Iran as well.
Right.
And the majority of Americans seem to want. What can be done both in the next 2 years, and what can one do as president, you do as president, so Americans say that the president is indeed responsive, particularly on an issue as important as the war?
Well, look, this week I introduced a very specific plan in the form of a bill, legislation, that would begin a phased withdrawal with the target of having all our combat forces out of Iraq by March 31st of next year. And that is what I would do right now if I were president. Because it's consistent with what my position's been throughout, which is we shouldn't have gone into the first place. Once we were in, we had some responsibility and a national security interest in stabilizing the situation, but that stability is only going to come about if there's a significant political compromise between the various Iraqi factions. It can't be imposed militarily. So I am hoping to get a vote on this bill. There are other strategies that have been presented. Russ Feingold has a bill, and he's been consistent, as I have, in our opposition to the president's misguided policies. I think Chris Dodd has a cap, at least on the surge, and Senator Biden has a non-binding resolution, which at least sends a message that the majority of the Senate is opposed to the president's policy. But I guess my point is that opposing the escalation is a distraction from the larger issue, which is that we need to de-escalate. Now in terms of what the future of the fact of the matter is, I think the next president is going to be cleaning up this mess for some time to come. And what citizens can do is essentially make sure that they are keeping the pressure on. Sooner or later, the political system responds. And I think the November election fundamentally changed the political climate in a way that puts more pressure on the president.
Now, for the people who feel like they're undergoing a deja vu all over again, I think, as Yogi Berra put it, in terms of American policy towards Iran, that the administration is...
I think the major difference is that there will not be any tolerance, I think, on the part of this Congress for unilateral action by Iran, by unilateral action by the United States against Iran. You're not going to get the kind of authorization language that you got for Iraq, and that, provided the president, frankly, a lot of cover for a long time. That boxed us in. It boxed a lot of folks in Congress into a policy that, wasn't going to work, and made it more difficult to oppose, these subsequent moves. But listen, Jonathan, I'm actually about to get on a plane.
I appreciate your time.
I hope that was helpful.
This is Jonathan Singer. You've been listening to original audio content from MyDD. For more interviews and coverage of American politics, head over to MyDD.com. Direct democracy for people-powered politics.